Thank you very much, Doug, for that gracious introduction, and good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thanks for coming out. It's very good to see all of you. This evening's presentation will feature readings from my book, Limestone, that Doug mentioned a moment ago, as well as musical selections from the companion CD. And I hope to achieve all this with a little help from my friends, artist Malika Favorite, Dr. Iranini Eshbujur, Dr. Michael Searles, and musicians John Kolbeck on bass, Jimmy Easton on alto sax, and Taurus Brown on percussion. Let's give them the welcome, please. Just briefly, before I start to read, to say that this book took some time in the making, 14 years, and about half of that involved research. The book focuses on some of the island's heroes and heroines, both actual historical personages, right here in Augusta. It begins in the 16th century with the genocide of the native Barbados Indians, and ends at the beginning of the 21st century. And it was a very difficult book to write in many ways, because the history of ex-colonial territories is nightmarish. And so there was a tremendous kind of burden I felt trying to not just chronicle history, because I didn't really want to write a history book. I wanted to get into the interior lives of these figures, emotional lives of these figures, and that was hard. That was a very hard thing to do. So I will pick up the narrative on a 17th century plantation in Barbados, where an African-born slave named Simon meets his destiny at the hands of his master when his forced sexual relationship with his owner's wife is discovered. Slaves increased like cowgrass, trapped in fields of pain, their shoulders scarred from loads of cane. They shuffled dully, all hope seared away, reading gang faces sucked in with want. Boys and girls and pregnant women, the very old and convalescent folks, feet barnacled in dust, heads padded with grief. Crocus sat close to hold the ground. By now, the slave, nameless, was called Simon. Every morning at 6, he slings cane bill over shoulder, sets off for the fields, or takes his place in the lane of rags, plodding onward towards the great house. Simon was regal, but ragged, a royal palm whose bark, like scales, was flaking. Wails, hollers, and ballads eased the strain. At dusk, they take the same mud tracks for home, walking slower, still humming tunes. Simon, haggard, reaches his cabin made of dried mud, then turns to his friends and waves. Night comes on with croaking frogs and night birds' calls, stray dog sounds in the echoing hills. Inside, a woman stokes the fire. 4 stones ring the flames that lick hard beneath an earthen pot. He loved her well, swollen stomach, the fruit of master's coarse order, breed. Yet even at this lake close to the earth, brooding maternal stage, daily labor calls her early to the sun-baked fields, weeding, hoeing between the canes. A dangerous kind of brute, the planter said. They tightened slave coats to tame the dark beasts by brandings, whippings, slitting noses, searing limbs, and iron bit to seal the mouth. Simon had fled one night, plunged through sugarcane, mauve and arrowed, sticky with juice. Demeanor a black crow's wing on soft satin, terror quickening his strides. Eyes pierce the darkness. Sweat rushes from him as he speeds, cane fronds razoring his arms, his legs. The canopied woods hear his cries, dogs' yelps. See the lights reflected, on his naked, captured form. Eyes shut, inner sense projects a speeding rush of images, of dodging the planters' shining black broughams slow wheeling to town, of the rum fume smell of Bridgetown's rowboat tavern beckoning with its whores, of the Malodorous River draining two parishes, dull like the eyes of a pox-racked planter, of the wharf's stale, nauseous smell of pigtails, pork, saltfish, molasses, hanging over the city streets, of soft, blue-veined hands, white on his ebony skin, country English voice telling him, "Such fine timbers, Simon, what manhood you have, palm tree Negro, my wild, sweet black." When house slave Joey saw all this with telltale eyes, witness to Simon's lengthy stays, one ear pressed to the door for moaning, rustling proof, Simon knew his life was gone. He hears trees rustling madly, curious monkeys making riot in mangrove leaves. They tied rope round his hands and hoist him up. The clearing is wide, washed in moonlight, frogs' objections, night birds' warbles, and the sour excitement of a lynch mob smell. Involuntary piss froths from Simon, mixing with the sweat that soaks the ground. He tries to plant his feet in the earth to stop his doom, but a snorting, drumming horse pulls up, sweat lathered, and a bowler hat dismounts. Simon hears the sound of buckled boots approach and squints through the blinding lantern's glare, thrust in his face. "Master," without hope he cries. "Simon, confess your sordid sin so God may pardon you, you heathen brute. Face your judgment." Face still hot with rum, he nods and two men tear off Simon's shirt, rough rope him to the pole. Master unwraps a whip with tip of bone. 35 of 100 strokes he gives, each lash a frown of pain, until Simon falls unconscious. He's revived with smelling salts. Then John, with pail in hand, takes crushed hot peppers and rubs them in his wounds. Master calls for a knife, and cold as ice, rips down Simon's ragged pants. In one swift move, the knife connects. Simon's manhood rises on the ground. Master steps back, his laugh dry as starch, calls one of his men to chop off one of the runaway's feet. Blood and more blood washes the age. For days, the sad slaves roam about, praying each drop will put a curse on Master's young. With glazed, austere appearances, their silence slices the sad hours, going slow, skimping work, spoiling food, once with ground glasses burning rod. Grief for Simon, slave just turned 37, slave who would never see his son. He lingers to the eve of locusts that ruin crops, eve of fire that darkens the city, eve of gusts that fell the fustic tree on whose bark the first settlers carved their names, eve of drought's ruin, when walls of great houses cracked, signs and wonders, but no penitence.